Hey everybody, it's Mike Meyers and Richard Chapman bringing you yet another edition of Two Bald Nerds, where two nerds get together baldly and baldly go where no nerd has gone before.
It's funny. I was having the exact same thought just as you said that. It went perfectly. That was awesome.
You're starting to hang out with me too much, dude. I'm starting to affect you. You know?
Well, we've had the discussion about the favorite Star Trek captain, and mine is Picard. So I embrace the baldness.
Well, Picard had his moments.
He did.
He got the girls just like Kirk did, so it was all good.
He did.
So hardware, huh? Man, I gotta tell you, when you talk about security hardware, you have a breadth of topics to cover. So like when you said security hardware to me, I had to think about this for a minute. I was like, what is the most important piece of security hardware? And I've got here, you want to see it?
Sure.
This is the most important piece of security hardware I have right now. So I've been starting to ride my bike again. And and I don't want my bike to get stolen. So for security, I got the Kryptonite New York lock. This thing is a booger, man. You are not going to get through that thing. So, so that now you're saying security, IT security. I was like, oh, well, that's different. Okay, because
Well, but there are Kensington locks. There are physical hardware locks just like that for laptops.
Absolutely. Sure.
So I mean that
locks for the door to the medium distribution frame might have something to do with it too there, right?
Yeah.
The only time in my life I've ever seen the retinal scanners, like real retinal scanners, was in Miami in a knock down there.
Very cool.
But other than that, I've only had to play video games to actually see real retinal scanners. But yeah, it's like technology. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, no matter what they are, I mean, they're all doing the same thing. They're all protecting our hardware, right?
Sure. Well, they're protecting our infrastructure, right?
Yeah. They're protecting everything. They're like the I guess you could really call them the first line of defense to a certain degree.
Sure. So let's start. Okay, I'm going to start with an easy one then. I'm going to say a traditional layer 3 router of the classic sense would be a pretty important piece of hardware.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though in today's society, the boxes that we own, software-defined networking proves this better than anything else, right? But the physical boxes become less and less important. Hell, the physical location of the protecting device becomes less and less important. They put edge firewalls up in the cloud to support a real physical network at a specific locality. That still kind of makes me go, whoa,
I know, right?
Yeah. I had a hard time with software-defined networking. You got to keep in mind that the whole idea of losing dedicated hardware to programmable to software, started a long time ago. And when we first started software-defined networking, we were looking at it as more of where you had a bunch of routers in a data center, but the routers that were out there were dumb. Okay. And you had a central device which would put the smarts into it in essence. To me, that's what software-defined networking was. Now it's, because of the cloud, it's I don't even know why we call it software-defined networking. It's just all software, but I guess it is defining the networking. So yeah, the classic old school router, that would have been my first choice of an important piece of hardware. Do you have any on your mind that come to mind?
Well, I think mine's probably one of the easy canned answers, which is a firewall. So many people, especially in an enterprise network, the hardware firewall, in my opinion, it's the first line of defense. It really is the first line of defense. So I go with firewall. I think firewall is the most important piece of security hardware.
No, well, now you're challenging me now. Now I got to think about this for a minute. Hardware, critical hardware. I mean, I could make a pretty strong argument for a number 2 Phillips screwdriver as a security hardware, but that's more of a tool as opposed to a device. Right. But I tend to think more in terms of physical, door locks and, cameras and, that type of stuff. it's so interesting that, you know, we live in a world now that's so cloud-based that physical security has never been more ignored than it is today. And it shocks me how easy it is to, where you have so much of your infrastructure up in the cloud, but you have enough of it down here that I can still put on the cleaning person's uniform and, get in through a door and have access to everything. I worry that we forget about that. And it's something that we should always keep in mind about physical security.
Well, I think when it comes to the security operations centers, you do still have the security in place. You've got security guards, you've got locked doors, you've got biometrics, you've got, PIV cards and so forth. I mean, there are absolutely security hardware measures in place. And thinking of like the data centers where maybe a lot of your actual network is these days, we have a ton of data centers here in Northern Virginia, and I can tell you every single one of them has got, a 6 to 8 foot fence around it with, the pointed tops on them and so forth. So cameras everywhere, gates to go through, double gates to actually get through and get into the facility. You don't go in there unless you're allowed to be in there, right? So, there's definitely a level of physical security that goes on in those data centers, but I do think that translates down to the security operations center facilities as well.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, SOCs are, because they're a SOC is traditionally, at least the brain part of it, is going to be based next to your important data. And we tend to keep that locked up. It's the extra system that's out in the accounting department that I can get in and do anything I want, and stuff like that. But no, absolutely, physical security works well in data center type scenarios. I wish more people thought about it in their offices. So
well, in those remote offsite locations, that's where like that Kensington lock could come into play. That's where something like a TPM chip, right? Trusted platform module to, make sure that the device is encrypted. Items like that also still play in as well too. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I just thought of another very good, I'll just tell you about it, that I just thought about a security app that would be important to me. And that would be RSA authenticators.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was trying to pull some up, and I'm on vacation right now, so, and I don't have RSA. I do keep one physical authenticator, and my fiance Wissa when she worked at NASA, they would use a lot of authenticators. And while we do see some of those authenticators being replaced with software, I'm impressed by physical hardware authenticators, mainly because they're really, really hard to hack. You know what I mean? It's the thing's generating one-time codes, right? I mean, isn't that basically what it is? So I feel more comfortable when it's a hardware device that is completely separate, as opposed to something I can put on my phone. And I do understand the authentication protocols and how they work. And I do appreciate that they will, in a software manifestation, they should be fine. I like the hardware ones better. I really do. RSA authenticators.
I had a couple of them when I was in my previous SOC. Nice little keychain with my RSA key fobs on them, and the codes just sit there and revolve. So whenever I needed a code to log in, boom, there it was. So, but yeah, you're right. I think a lot of that is being replaced with software. I mean, I use Google Authenticator for a lot of my multi-factor authentication now. I don't even have an RSA key fob anymore. So, but some places still like to rely on that. They feel that it's a little bit better, maybe. Like you said, it's kind of hard to move away from the old school ways, right?
Yeah, that's true. So I guess when it comes to thinking about hardware, physical security is always going to be there, obviously. But we do see more and more movement into a software type of environment. A lot of things that were classically hardware, even your firewall example, right? I mean, I would argue that the old school layer 3 router that I was using as a descriptor, it can easily, especially like a more generic layer 3 switch, like something from Cisco or Juniper, I'm pretty sure I can put a firewall on that router. Although I know in a SOC environment, you tend to want to keep firewalling as a separate feature, right? I mean, like, is Barracuda still out there as a big name, or?
It is Barracuda, Cisco, Palo Alto, FortiGate. There's quite a few of them. Next generation firewalls are very, very feature rich though. So there's a tremendous amount of things built into them. So
Sure.
Which, you know,
Absolutely.
I get it, it does make it a little bit nicer and easier, you know, maybe to configure as well.
So really, I guess the answer is, when it comes to hardware, what's our favorite hardware? It's the security hardware that does the job we need it to do. And the security hardware that works with our software and our firmware or whatever it is to get the job done. And and I don't care if it's a bike lock or an RSA key, you know, if it's the right tool and it's doing the right job and it's preventing the naughtiness from happening, then I would say it's a pretty darn good piece of security hardware. What do you think?
I would agree with that. And we talk about defense in layers, and there's always overlap between different security measures. And that overlap reduces some of those holes that attackers can kind of get through and utilize to get into an environment in some way, shape, or form. So defense in layers, I think all of them are important. They all carry their own weight. So yeah.
We should, I don't want to do it right now, but maybe next time we get there, we should do a discussion of defense and layers. You know, it's one of the things you hear about in security training all the time, Richard, but I think between you and I, we could come up with some pretty good examples for those kids out there to really get a good idea of what security and depth really stands for. Richard, that was a good one, man. Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you about, well, anything, of course, but you know, I being the hardware geek, I think you were throwing me an easy one underhanded just because you're the swell guy that you are.
Well, you are on vacation, so, you know, I got to take it easy on you. So,
dude, I am on permanent vacation.
Well, one day I'll be there too. So,
yeah, I got to tell you, it's great. You wake up in the morning, it's Monday. What are we going to do? I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I'm worried that in 3 months, I'm going to go stir crazy and, like, you know.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm sure you'll find something tech focused to keep you busy.
Oh, I know the National Cyber Group and the CyberNow Labs people are more than happy to have me jump in. So it's not a problem. Folks, thank you so much for listening for me and Richard talking about hardware security. Stick around. We got lots of other great episodes coming up. Until then, this is your two bald nerds, Mike Meyers and Richard Chapman, saying hasta la vista. If you like Two Bold Nerds, check out our entire playlist right here. It's a lot of fun. We'll see you there.